The word the isn't exactly easy to define. The word cow, it's this milky beefy buddy. The word sheep, it's the sheep is in the box. Even the word pee-pee-poo-poo emulates the sophisticated babbling of a child on the canonical stage to describe the byproducts of micturition and defecation. But the is different from every previous word discussed on this channel because it's not something you can point to. The is a function word, meaning it expresses the grammatical role of nearby words, even if it doesn't have lexical meaning in itself. Don't let this inconspicuous determiner fool you. Definite articles like elle, le, de, and so many others reveal how grammar begins, grows, and evolves. Let's explore how definite articles are born. We'll start from the beginning. A noun is definite if it's specific, unique, and familiar. Basically, if the speaker refers to a specific cow, it's definite. And if any cow will do, as long as it's a cow, it's indefinite. In English, which you most likely speak if you're watching this video, the definite article is the or the, and the indefinite article is a or a. This is a cow. The cow is on the mountain. A different cow is under the tree. Now, if you're a native English speaker, this is really obvious, and it's obvious to you because English articles mark definite and indefinite nouns. Every language can express definiteness to some degree, however clunky, but in English, it's a mandatory part of the grammar. Other languages mark definiteness differently, if at all. In Standard Arabic, definiteness is marked on the noun and the adjective, but other languages like Japanese don't explicitly mark definiteness at all. Now, Japanese is no less capable of distinguishing between a specific cow and any old cow. It's just that the distinction is left to context, not to grammar. After all, the ultimate job of grammar is to take infinitely complex meaning, figure out the important bits, and use a system of rules to put that important stuff first, and because different languages prioritize different things, they all express definiteness in different ways. This begs the question, why do some languages prioritize definiteness, while others don't? How do languages get a mix of marking, and what predictions can we make as a result? Perhaps the answer rests within grammaticalization. 7-syllable words like grammaticalization may sound quite atrocious, but the meaning is pretty transparent once you take the word apart. It means to become grammatical, and that's exactly what happens. Over time, lexical items change and erode into pieces of grammar. But these changes are not willy-nilly. They come in 4 intertwined phases, which are debated, the specifics, but this is just sort of a general overview. Step 1, your lexical item will go through semantic bleaching, losing some of its meaning. Step 2 is it gains new ones through semantic broadening. Step 3, it loses its previous lexical status. And step 4, it phonetically erodes into pieces of grammar. The details, again, are heavily debated, but you get the general point. Nowhere is grammaticalization more clear than in definite and indefinite articles, which almost always come from the same words. Definite articles usually come from demonstratives, like this, that, these, those. Basically, speakers refer to that cow so much that they begin to distinguish between that cow and the cow. You can see it pretty clearly in languages like Biscayan Basque, where the definite article is simply a bound form of the demonstrative. The process is also apparent in Eastern Objiwe, which doesn't have definite articles but uses pre-grammaticalized demonstratives in the same sort of way. Indefinite articles, however, almost always come from the number 1. The process is very visible in Albanian. The numeral and article are phonetically identical, but serve somewhat different purposes. And in Tamil, the number 1 is used as a pre-grammaticalized article of sorts. See, it's pretty straightforward. Definite articles come from demonstratives, and indefinite articles come from the number 1, which is pretty predictable as far as grammaticalization goes. But don't mistake simplicity for linearity. else you'll squeeze grammar into Western civilization's neat myth of advancement. The truth is far more cyclical. The grammaticalization of articles is pretty linear, but it's really part of a bigger cyclical process. You start with demonstratives, which occurs in a determiner phase, a determiner being something that determines the type of reference to a noun. Not blue cow, the blue cow, this blue cow, my blue cow, every blue cow. Standard American English lets you add as many adjectives as you want, but you only get one determiner per noun in Standard American English. It differs dialectically. The whole sentence fits into the determiner phrase, which includes a specifier, particularly this, and another phrase. It's marked D prime because it's inside a bigger phrase. D prime includes a null determiner and whatever noun phrase info you want, but let's just cut the adjectives for simplicity, so it's this cow. In phase 1 of this process, the demonstrative tells you the location, which glosses as interpretable locative features, or that I lock down there. And if applicable, it also tells you the number and gender, which is glossed as interpretable 5 features. But remember, it's still a separate interpretable demonstrative. And at the next phase of this cycle, though, speakers see this specifier, and over time they move it to the empty head position to become an article. Tense becomes uninterpretable, and so does gender and 5 features. By the way, uninterpretable gender doesn't mean that articles don't have some sort of visible gender. Lots of languages have articles that express gender. I-fi just means that it's got inherent person and number. Whereas U-fi agrees with something else's number and gender. Basically, the specifier becomes the head. The article becomes closer to the noun in a sense. Instead of this cow, you get the cow, which means the speaker sort of sacrifices locational specificity, but they don't have to define stuff like gender and number twice. At the next phase of the cycle, definite articles can become case or non-generic morphemes. Because speakers use these articles so much, the next generation starts to reanalyze the separate determiner as a bound case marker or a non-generic morpheme of some sort, which would be like the cow becoming the cow. But I'll make it an infix, thou, for sonority and just because infixes are fun. Meaning this becomes this. That leaves some slots open, so speakers can easily add adverbs or demonstratives to specify locative details that have long been bleached from the demonstrative affix. The advantage of adding this little bit of extra information is that you can specify locative, gender, and number info. Wait a second, we just moved from case to demonstratives. Oh, you cheeky grammar. This cycle, though, doesn't function on its own. It co-occurs with dependent marking cycles, head marking cycles, negative cycles, and more, in a multi-dimensional foam of complex interactions, which begs how one should study and apply this theory. When I tell people I study grammar, they often assume some level of prescriptive correction with a red pen. However, understanding the cyclical evolution of grammar reveals the true beauty of slang and dialectical variation, which becomes vividly apparent in the negation cycle, which I may tackle in another video. For the mad lads who spend countless hours constructing languages for fun, the grammaticalization of definite articles holds boundless potential. In Proto-Plebupwe, adjectives precede nouns, while demonstratives follow them. Thus, articles occur in different places. And once articles were lost, it makes room for new demonstratives, with articles only fossilized in the most formal of registers in some really specific contexts. Nonetheless, this information isn't limited to conlanging by any means. It's just nice to know that such a small, inconspicuous word that we use in pretty much every sentence is in such rich, diverse company.